So for my vocabulary lesson, I decided to do an integrated lesson on vocabulary and science that I have titled Words of the Water Cycle, and it is for third grade. For my standards, I chose determine the meaning of words and phrases as they are used in grade level text, distinguishing literal from non-literal meaning as well as shades of meaning among related words, and determine or clarify the meaning of unknown and multi-meaning words and phrases based on grade level reading and content, choosing flexibility from a range of strategies and tools. So before the lesson, students will be able to label the water cycle diagram that is given to them based on their prior knowledge and inferences. And then during the lesson, students will be able to correctly identify and define the vocab words in their definition notebooks. And lastly, after the lesson, students will be able to correctly match the vocab words to the definition using the provided cutouts. I actually have changed this one, and I will go back after this recording and edit it, but I forgot to change it beforehand, sorry. I'm going to actually have students draw a picture of one of the vocab words and use the word in a sentence to describe their picture. So for the material for this lesson, the students will need their definition notebooks, the water cycle diagram, and definition handout. Again, I need to go back and change this. I am so sorry, I changed stuff as I was working, but they will not need these. They will need scissors, a glue stick, and lastly, their picture handout that I will show at the end. So before the reading and writing or the lesson, I will say today we'll be learning about the water cycle. We see the water cycle occur around us all of the time, but did you know that the water actually travels in a cycle? To get us started, we will be starting with a song. I will sing to you it for you once, and then we'll sing it together. I have the lyrics to the song at the end. I can go show now. So it's a song that actually my cousin learned when she was in fourth grade about 10 years ago. And it's just this quick little song, and it says, water travels in a cycle, yes it does. Water travels in a cycle, yes it does. It goes up as evaporation, forms a cloud of condensation, comes back down as precipitation, yes it does. H2O. So I thought that was just a fun way to get the class started, and it provides them with a catchy little song that they can sing in their heads when going through learning the water cycle, as well as being assessed on their knowledge of the water cycle, because I wasn't even in the class when my cousin was taught that song. I just heard it from her, but still to this day I remember it, and I know the cycle that water travels in. So I thought that was just a quick fun thing to include and get them started with. And then I would have the song listed, or the lyrics listed on the board so they could sing along. And then I would say that I won't read this word for word, but I would say that there were songs and words in songs that may have been unfamiliar to us, and ask students what those songs were, or those words were, such as precipitation, evaporation, and condensation, and how they might be new to us, and so how we are going to define those before we start learning more about the water system. I would then have the teacher hand out the water cycle diagram, which I will show at the end, and ask students cut out the words at the bottom and use their prior knowledge and make educated guesses to place the definitions in the correct spot. They won't be gluing them at this time, because if they do get it wrong, since this is their first lesson on the water cycle, I don't expect them to get it 100% correct. They would glue them down later and just place them where they think they would go. This just gets them thinking about the water cycle and allows their brain to think a little harder about making an inference about what the picture looks like and what they predict the word to mean. So during lesson, I would have the students get out their labeling worksheet, or put their labeling worksheets aside and take out their definition notebooks, just a notebook that they already have that they store their definitions for different lessons in, like their own little personal dictionary. I would have them title the page water cycle, put the date on it, and tell them that we are going to work through the definitions of the water cycle. And then, so I didn't write out word for word what the teacher would say, but I have given instruction on how the teacher will have students write the word in their notebooks, ask if any student knows the definition, call on some of them to share what they think the definition is, and then, of course, say if they're correct or incorrect, or and then give them the definition. I would have the teacher read it aloud and write it on the board as well, because I know some students prefer to see it, especially with spelling. It's just sometimes easier for them to hear it and see it. And I also noted that the students should be following along in their notebooks and writing with the teacher and making a little dictionary for themselves. So the words that the students will be learning are water cycle, precipitation, condensation, evaporation, transpiration, runoff, and collection. And so I would have the teacher, or I would say each word, write them on the board, define them, have the students follow along. That part is a little bit less interactive, but I'm hoping with my after activity that it provides them with a little more fun than just sitting and writing definitions. Also having the teacher ask if students know the definitions and allowing them to guess the definition or say what they know as the definition provides a little more interaction with the class than just sitting there and writing them. So I would then have the students glue their words on their diagram and ask them to change it if it was incorrect the first time to what they know now. I would also provide a correct diagram on the board and go over it with them so that they know what is correct and glue them in the correct spot. Then afterwards, I would have the students, again, I'm not going to read this word for word, but I would have the students, I would hand out a paper that it gives them the ability to draw on and write a couple sentences and tell them to choose one of the words. For example, if they chose precipitation, they could draw their interpretation of precipitation. And I noted to be creative, make it fun. This is completely up to them what they want to do. So even if it doesn't make a whole ton of sense to their day-to-day lives, like for example, I have if they choose water flowing down a volcano or snow falling at the beach. Oftentimes, I'm sure these students aren't seeing water falling down a volcano, but that shows runoff and precipitation. So just something fun. They can chat with their table groups and draw pictures together and make it interesting. And then I would have them write 2 to 3 sentences saying, for example, this is water flowing down a volcano. When water flows down a volcano, it is an example of runoff. So using their word in the sentence to describe their picture to me. This would allow me to assess them, so I would assess their drawing and sentence in the following manner. Exceeding expectations would be the students drawing accurately represents the word that they chose, and they wrote 3 to 4 sentences that use their word correctly. Meeting expectations, the students drawing accurately represents the word they chose, and they wrote 2 to 3 sentences with their word correctly. Approaching expectations would be more like the students drawing does not accurately depict the word they chose, such as if they wrote collection and said they drew a picture of precipitation, like something running, something raining. And then also, and or their sentence do not use the word correctly. So if they said precipitation is when the water sits in a lake, that would be incorrect. And then for adaptations for ELL students and students with special needs, I would provide a definition handout for them that have all of the definitions labeled depending on the abilities of the students that I was giving it to. Maybe I would leave the vocab word blank and they could write that in. It's a lot less to write for them, so they can really focus on understanding the definition instead of focusing on writing the definition. Also for their drawing, I would again tell them that if 2 to 3 feels too much, they can write 1, they can write 4, they can write as many as they want, but they're not required to write 2 or 3. For extensions for advanced or gifted students, I would give them the opportunity to represent multiple steps in the water cycle. If they wanted to draw the entire water cycle, they could, or if they wanted to draw runoff and a collection, and then describe their drawing with many sentences to really show me how the two things they've drawn work together or interact in the cycle. My citations, I did use this Quizlet for definitions of the water cycle vocab that I used. I needed a little refresher on good definitions for each of those. And then this link is the link to the photo below that I have used. These are my water cycle lyrics. And then this is one of the handouts where I would have the students cut out the words at the bottom and place them in this diagram. I did find the diagram on Google. That's what the one link was for. And then it was pre-labeled, so I used blocks to cover it up. So they would glue their words in these different spots. And then lastly, this is the drawing worksheet. So I'd have them draw their picture in this box and write a couple sentences below. And that is my lesson.